This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, Real Talkers, we've seen it. The banker's first budget. Mark Carney, by way of his finance minister, of course, putting Budget 2025 in front of Canadians. Welcome to this, the Real Talk Budget 2025 breakdown. You're going to hear from 7 panel experts representing different perspectives in construction, in industry, in commerce. We're going to be talking about jobs today. Plus, we'll be jumping into our live chat powered by Park Power. Real Talkers already all fired up. Jamie's in there, says, I called it yesterday. There is so far at least one Conservative MP not voting with Pierre Poilievre. I did miss the floor crossing, though. Others laughing at the floor crossing. I guarantee some are not. Anytime an elected member circumvents the democratic process and crosses the floor to join the government, you know that it's bound to be controversial, and that's exactly what happened in Ottawa as the Liberals, this minority government, look for 3 votes outside their caucus to get this thing passed. You might also say the Liberals are looking for 3 votes, or maybe now 2, in order to survive a vote of confidence that will go down later this month. Now, if you've been feeling, like many have, that Canada's economy has been in a holding pattern, sluggish growth, rising costs, big promises that never quite hit the mark, this budget might be Ottawa's successful attempt to turn the page. We're going to find out what our experts have to say about it. We're going to take a look at what this means for you and what the stakes are, quite frankly. They're huge. The federal government is calling this budget one about strengthening Canadian sovereignty, bringing down costs. The translation, they're trying to look responsible and ambitious at the same time. So over the next 5 years, Ottawa's planning close to $300 billion in fundamental investment, $280 billion to be exact. Everything from infrastructure to defense to critical minerals development. We spent a lot of time talking about that on our most recent episode, October 31st, with our panel of experts on energy and the economy. At the same time, Ottawa's admitting to a large deficit, Canada's largest outside of the COVID years, around $78 billion in 2025-26. It's a message of spend big to modernize the economy, but cut waste, show discipline. In the words of the Prime Minister, sacrifice. And so this budget isn't about sweeping tax cuts for everybody. It's more about strategic investment and targeted incentives. More on that as this show progresses. You're going to see credits for clean tech investment, manufacturing, critical minerals development, mining, R&D. And on the tax side, some interesting moves as well. The luxury tax on aircraft and boats for real talkers looking at buying a private jet or a yacht. Well, the good news is that luxury tax is gone. The underused housing tax, gone. We're going to get the builder's perspective today. The big signal, Ottawa wants to show investors, especially in the resource and energy world, that Canada is open for business again. We're going to be hearing from the major party leaders, including the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, in just a moment. But right now, we want to let you know that this episode is happening with the presenting sponsorship of our friends at RapidX Financial. RapidX Financial gives you 3 easy ways to buy and sell crypto across Canada, either online with Interac eTransfer, at their trusted ATMs across Canada, or fully guided over the counter, on the phone, or in person. So whether you're an individual that's just getting started, or maybe you're a corporation growing its Bitcoin stash to preserve your assets, RapidX is there with real local people ready to help every step of the way. There's no bots, there's no hidden fees, just genuine support from a Canadian team that truly cares about your financial journey. Get crypto your way, anywhere, anytime with RapidX Financial. You can check them out online. Get started today by visiting rapidxfinancial.com. Well, we didn't expect to see the leader of Canada's official opposition, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, support Mark Carney's budget. And yesterday, once the budget dropped, he let Canadians know exactly why the majority of, if not all of his remaining Conservatives, will be voting no. Here's what Pierre Poilievre had to say.
The cost of this Liberal budget will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else that Canadians buy. And the Prime Minister has broken every single promise he made just 7 short months ago. He promised a $62 billion deficit. He delivered nearly an $80 billion deficit, $16 billion bigger than he promised and twice the size that his predecessor left behind. He promised to lower the debt to GDP ratio. He raised it, and inflation along with it. He promised to spend less. He's spending $90 billion more, costing $5,400 per family in Canada. And that $90 billion, to the Prime Minister's heckles, is above and beyond the promised $16 billion that he says he will one day find. And if he doesn't find them, it will be over $100 billion in brand new spending to respond to the Prime Minister's heckles, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so the Prime Minister heckling Pierre Poilievre, so he says, but Poilievre's and the Conservatives' message, Carney broke his promise. Essentially, the money guy is taking Canada into unprecedented and dangerous fiscal territory. The leader of the Bloc Québécois, and here's an interesting one to keep an eye on because, of course, the Bloc could let the Liberals survive if they so choose, but Yves-François Blanchet is not so sure it's the right move. Here's what he had to say.
I hardly see how, after having met with our caucus tonight, we could vote in favor of this budget. Those $78 billion of deficit, whatever tricks they want to invent. There's nothing of what we did ask in the budget. And I must tell you that what the Bloc Québécois asked in order to maybe support the budget about elders, about healthcare transfers, about what we did ask, but one thing that was not given to Quebecers and given to everybody else would have been good for all Canadians, not only Quebecers. Still, the answer is no. This is a red conservative budget, which Mr. Harper might have signed. And there's nothing for Quebecers in there.
I'm not so sure that it's a bad thing for the Liberals to have the Bloc leaders suggesting that Stephen Harper may have signed off on this budget. But the number one takeaway there probably is don't count on votes from the Bloc, and Quebec ain't happy. So all eyes move to the New Democrats. Sure, a meager representation, relatively speaking, in the House of Commons, 7 seats. But now keep in mind the Liberals only need 2 for the math to work out in their favor. So what did Don Davies have to say about it? Here's the NDP interim leader.
We have unemployment at 10-year highs, particularly hard for young people, where 1 in 6 young people is out of work, and many more than that are underemployed. Economic growth is weak, and of course we face serious problems from south of the border. So it is in that context that we're evaluating this budget today. I can tell you that New Democrats are going to take the time to study this budget. We're going to consult with stakeholders. We're going to talk to Canadians, particularly working Canadians, and review this budget to see if this budget passes our lens of whether it works for working Canadians. So I'll happy to take any questions you may have.
Is this an austerity budget?
It's hard to tell at this point. What I'll say is it's got a very large deficit. Spending is up in many ways. There are some record investments, but it also is, cutting public services that Canadians need. So this is something that we'll be taking a very close look at.
It's still early, but whipping your caucus on a vote, or will this be a free vote?
Traditionally on confidence measures, parties vote along party lines. So that's the tradition of our party. I wouldn't expect it to be any different.
It's still early, but was there any red line there in the budget so far that you've seen that it disqualifies you? I know it's still early stages, but it seems like you're saying we need time to digest it, so there isn't an immediate red line that you said that would disqualify you guys from supporting it.
That's an excellent question, and one of the reasons I opened up with the serious problems we're facing is that there's complex issues that are facing us, and I don't think that we can oversimplify whether policies are going to respond or not. So I'll tell you a few things that we like about the budget. There's $51 billion in infrastructure spending, and that's linked to unionized jobs or community benefit agreements, which requires that work to be done through wage prevailing rates. So that could create good family-sustaining jobs, which has been a priority for the NDP. We talked about, campaigned on, an east-west clean electricity grid. That's mentioned on page 1 of the budget. And there's a specific mention of co-op housing, something that is near and dear to New Democrat hearts and something that we push for all the time.
So it sure sounds to me like there's a chance that the Carney Liberals could see a couple of votes from the NDP, although Mr. Davies noting that these votes typically would be whipped. In other words, the votes would toe the party line. But if you look at the points he made near the end, there's a reason why we played the extended clip. One of their top priorities, a clean energy grid, east-west. He says it was on page 1. He talks about housing initiatives that are, quote, near and dear to our heart. A dramatic difference than what you heard from the Bloc Québécois leader, which reminds us, as if we needed to be reminded, that this budget is not just about economics, it's about politics. And this government is not a majority government. They're now 2 seats short of a majority with the defection, with the floor crossing of Nova Scotia formerly Conservative MP Chris Dentremont, who has now joined the Liberals. But the government does still need to at least 2 more votes or abstentions, which is another option that the NDP has. So is it safe to say that this budget feels like a reset? We'll ask our experts. A step away from heavy regulation and toward economic partnership with business, with industry, with Alberta. It's about big investments, targeted incentives, a softer touch on climate regulation. Not everybody loves that, but at the same time, the government's saying, listen, we still need to get serious about our books. Now, we're grateful to have an engaged audience with us, including Explorer Hollis, who in our live chat says, don't worry, everybody. I've set my meeting calendar to show that I'm in meetings all morning, showing that initiative so that I can be here with the Real Talk community. That's exactly what we love to hear as we welcome in our feature interview presented by our friends at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, Heather Thomson, Vice President of Economy Engagement at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, one of the architects behind the Chamber's new State of the Economy report. Kalen Anderson, CEO of BILD Edmonton Metro, representing home builders and developers that are shaping the region's housing and infrastructure growth. And Mike Saunders, Senior VP at Qualico, of course, one of Western Canada's largest integrated real estate companies, overseeing residential and commercial development across the Metro Edmonton region. Welcome to all of you, and thanks for making time for us on this budget super episode. Heather, you came in here and you struck me as, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe a little bit optimistic through the chamber lens, through the economy lens. Your first thoughts?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, when we were looking at the budget yesterday, we were pretty optimistic, and we are optimistic. I think we're seeing historical levels of public investment into key areas to help our economy, Canada's economy, grow and ultimately keep up. I would say Canada's economy is not in a great place right now. And so if we kind of look at, the green flags of this budget, great levels of public investment into things like all the things you just mentioned in terms of trade capacity, infrastructure, and R&D, science, a whole suite of things that are going to be really, really good for our economy. It is a large deficit, and I would say, though, it's money well spent. And I know the government keeps saying that it's not spending, it's investing. And when we look at the surface of the budget, we would, from the Chamber's perspective, agree. The other thing I want to just kind of point out is that what this will do for confidence in the economy, it will do wonders. We will see, we cannot understate the impact of uncertainty when we're looking at what happened with tariffs. The impact of tariffs isn't necessarily the tax. It has been uncertainty. So we're not seeing companies invest the way that they want to. And so we want to make sure that there's confident signals out in the world. So we're starting to see investment pick up in the private sector, and this budget will do that. And I think generally speaking, from the Chamber's perspective, again, there's going to be the devil's in the details for sure. I think we've only had access to this for 18 hours or so. But yeah, generally speaking, we're pretty optimistic about this budget. And when we wrote our federal action plan, early May last year, a lot of the things that we were wanting ended up happening. It almost seemed like they read our federal action plan and they took it to heart. So
did you submit it to them?
We did. Yeah, we did. So we're, I'll just take credit for it.
I mean, if I was you, I'm taking credit for that.
I will. I'm curious to see what Kalen and Mike are going to say because they might hate it. And then I'm like, no, never mind. We didn't do anything.
Well, I mean, Kalen, not to throw you under the bus, I'm pretty sure that the comment was okay on the record, but we're having coffee in our green room before this episode, and we're sort of riffing on the budget, and you go, home builders just hate this budget. How come?
Yeah, well, from a national perspective, and I had the benefit of reaching out to CHB National this morning to get additional context, of course, because they're much more close to the politics and the real detail on Parliament Hill. But at the end of the day, one of the most pressing issues for Canadians through this last election cycle, and frankly over the last 5 years, has been housing affordability, which often gets misinterpreted by senior levels of government as affordable housing. So we've seen an initial investment of $13 billion into the BILD Canada Homes program, which is essentially subsidized housing for low-income households, which will be created mostly via manufacturing on government-owned lands. So not to say that that's not important, but we need to double housing starts in this country, and the 4,000 units proposed to be developed under BILD Canada Homes is less than 1% of what's going to be required. So the 95% of Canadians who are in market attainable housing or who wish to be in market attainable housing aren't seeing a lot of relief from this budget, and there's been no serious advancement from 2024, which was really lauded as a bit of a housing budget. This one just doesn't seem to be making any moves forward in that direction for the vast majority of Canadians who are in market rate rental housing and home ownership.
Are you a little surprised by that? I mean, I think if you stopped 10 Canadians on the street in any city, regardless of their political awareness, and said, what are the top 3 issues facing Canadians right now, I have to assume that affordability and housing would be on at least 6 or 7 or 8 of those responses.
Totally. It's like one of the most existential issues in this country. We're so lucky in the Edmonton Metro region that we're the last big city in the country that can actually offer housing affordability at a market rate to people. And the reason that's important is because it's a deeply held value of most Canadians that they want to be able to live in their own place under their own steam and not require government subsidy to do so. So when we're thinking about housing affordability, the issue I think we keep tripping over is that without a more nuanced conversation, the solution seems to be affordable housing, which is government subsidy. Whereas if the market could perform to allow more Canadians to take care of themselves in the actual marketplace, fewer interventions would be required over time. So it's really not a great solution to increase the share of affordable housing if that means that more proportion of the population has to dip into that to get by.
Mike, what's something that you were keeping a keen eye on, and what are some of the like major takeaways as you scan the document, as you watch the coverage?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. There was a lot of spending that was announced and a lot of investments, but specific to Edmonton, I maybe touch on a bit that Kalen did as well. The Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund works great in principle, but again, it's for that attainable housing and more affordable. And, there's a cascading effect that happened as we navigated through COVID on home affordability, and with rising interest rates, everybody got knocked down a level as far as what affordability means. So, a lot of detail yet to come, but nothing really on rentals, right? There's a lot of talk and discussion leading up to this on GST rebates, on rental projects. And so there's a lot to be seen there. I guess from a pretty narrow lens, walking downtown, I'm a big downtown advocate, mental health and addictions advocate. I guess I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth where, it should be about market housing, but there's really little in the budget that spoke to the troubles that we're seeing downtown, right? From a urban wellness, post-recovery perspective on housing, whether that's day shelters, whether that's transitional housing, whether there's wraparound mental health and addictions. We'll probably touch on this a bit later as far as what our economic development capacity is within the city, but having a lot of vulnerable community members downtown doesn't help with that, and it's not a good environment. So there's been a lot of great work done. I know Eleanor Oshesky did some work with Bridge Healing out of the Royal Alec with Dr. Francescotti. but pretty silent on the budget, and I think that's something that faces all of us in downtown that could have been worked.
Yeah, Eleanor Olszewski, of course, the Liberal MP minister out of Edmonton Centre. She'll be joining us in the next few episodes. Her team's been in touch. We want to get the government voice on this. Interesting timing, and I'm not surprised to hear you bring that up on the day spaces and the issues plaguing Edmonton's downtown, and these issues of humanity and of commerce at that intersection, that messy but wonderful intersection where we recognize that politics all matter and that the ripple effect is real. Edmonton's brand new mayor, Andrew Knack, making that one of his first priorities. I think his first official video that he released as mayor talking about those day shelter spaces and prioritizing that. So to see nothing in the federal budget, you can understand how that may be something. I've not yet spoken with the mayor of Edmonton, but may be a bit of a punch in the gut for them.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it has to be a nonpartisan approach to that, whether it's provincial government on the recovery model or the federal government or the city. It'd be great to get into that space from the city of Edmonton, but it costs money, right? That's the facts of it.
Yeah, I like that you bring up the partisan comment. Cliff's in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider. Cliff says, this is a conservative budget wrapped in red foil. Says, many of my staunch liberal friends are unhappy with it. Is that actually kind of a good sign when it comes to a budget, that it's not inherently conservative or liberal or otherwise?
Yeah, it's like a negotiation. Like when everyone feels like they're capitulating a little bit, that's probably a good thing. And obviously there's going to be room for improvement on all different lenses. But I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that when we have a strong economy, we can do so much more. And what Mike just outlined is not just an Edmonton specific thing. Like this is something we're seeing across downtowns in Canada, and really the world right now. So these are big issues, but hopefully once we start seeing the return on those investments, we'll have more money to deal with a lot of these problems. The way I see it with this budget is that there was no other way. Like we had to put the economy first. Yes, there's work to be done in terms of some of those details. But ultimately, if we weren't going to do this, we were going to be in a worse position later. The other thing that's tricky about this budget is that there's no instant win on this budget. Like these investments will take years, if not decades, to see the return on it. But we ultimately need to start going down that path and investing in these critical areas of the economy.
That's kind of an interesting point from Heather, because often we lament the fact that politicians tend to govern or budget for election cycles for every 4 years, where you want to have, proof of performance. You want to be able to demonstrate your deliverables to the electorate 2 years after the budget has rolled out. But that's not how industry or that's not how investors operate, is it? I mean, obviously everybody likes to turn a tidy investment into something quickly, but it's not always the way that it works in real life.
Yeah, well, nation building and city building and province building are multi-generational activities that take a very long time. It's easy to lose track. One of the things I am heartened by in this budget is the recognition that the public civil service grew radically by 100,000 people over the last decade, and that's going to be pulled back and brought more into alignment, and that it's not an anti-public service comment. Outstripped our population growth, our GDP growth, inflation. It was just a runaway train. So to the extent that we can start to right size our investments, I think at all levels, that will set us up for those multi-decade wins, if that's what we're talking about. But in the short term, look, our investors, for example, in the real estate industry, are thinking in cycles of as short as 6 months through to a decade in terms of getting land prepared to welcome all of the new Canadians who will be coming. The other thing maybe I'll throw on the table, since we're chatting about this, is new Canadians. We saw the immigration rate get slashed fairly significantly, which will be one to watch in terms of intra-provincial migration in this country and which cities are growers more than others. And also in terms of what that means for our affordability picture and many other things, talent attraction, retention, et cetera.
These are some of the things that Mark Carney promised to do, though, right on the campaign trail back in March and April. In particular, I mean, floating the number, cutting the public service by about 15% and talking about some of those sacrifices. Along different lines, Michael's watching us live on YouTube right now. What's up, Michael? Says, I'm glad to see that Mark Carney is keeping the Canada Child Benefit, dental, pharma, investing in the CBC, and the National School Lunch Program. That's something that Michael was looking to see. I thought this was interesting from RBC Wealth Management, their federal budget summary. Quote, this budget marks a pivot from crisis management to competitiveness. The government betting on targeted incentives rather than sweeping tax relief. It's a move that could spur growth if business confidence returns. I mean, that's what you're keeping an eye on. That's what you guys are all about.
Oh, definitely. We had a press conference last week with the Chamber, and the message there was clarity, right? We need confidence in our municipal government, all levels of government. And, I think we're very much in a place of revitalization and not recovery. So having a signal, I think there's a lot of confidence in Prime Minister Carney from a capital perspective. But seeing that to Kalen's point on what does that mean as we navigate the issues that we're dealing with in Edmonton specifically, it'll take a while for those to be seen, definitely.
Okay, we're hanging out with Mike Saunders, Kalen Anderson, and Heather Thomson. This federal budget talking about building an investable economy. For a lot of Canadians, making investments right now is the last thing on their mind. They're just scraping by. I want to ask the three of you about that, and I want to ask about this State of the Economy report. That coming up in just a moment. Plus, we're going to zoom out with a province-wide look. Our friends, this segment basically compiled, put together by our friends at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, obviously with a massive network. We're going to get a post-secondary look. We're going to be talking about jobs on the back nine of this episode. Plus, of course, we're going to be taking you out to Jasper, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper with My Jasper Memories. All of that coming up in this budget 2025 breakdown exclusively on Real Talk. Don't forget, if you're watching on our live stream presented by California Closets, we'll be getting into our live chat through the show, and you can always send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com.
Edmonton is here because the river is here. So we care for it, protect it, share it. The water of the North Saskatchewan sustains all of us. It's a big job to treat and deliver it, river to tap, to over 1 million people, so you can have and enjoy a glass of the Sask. On tap, made local by Epcor.
If we're talking federal budget, it's a perfect time of year for these dinner table conversations that we all have with our families. Maybe with our business partners, and our friends at North Road Investment Council want you to be thinking about this. When it comes to investing, more and more private clients and institutions are asking the exact same question. If most mutual funds aren't keeping up with their benchmark, why not just own the benchmark? Research from S&P back in 2024 shows that over 80% of Canadian equity mutual funds underperform the index that they track. At North Road Investment Council, they build customized passive portfolios that are designed to capture index returns while still respecting your values and your preferences. And that means that you can exclude companies, for example, that you may be connected to as an executive, or based on your convictions, avoid industries. Maybe you don't want to invest in guns or tobacco in your portfolio. Even design your holdings for greater tax efficiency. For families and institutions with around $2 million to invest, we can create at North Road fully customized factor portfolios within Canada and the United States. North Road Investment Council celebrates the fact that markets are competitive. You can reach out to them today at North Road IC to learn more about building your custom portfolio. We can't on this show talk about building custom without giving a big shout out to the best in the business on custom closets and storage solutions. That's California Closets, proudly Canadian owned and operated. I've told you this before. My wife, Carrie, and I, 8 years ago, sat down for a free design consultation with California Closets. We had no idea what was in store, what they designed for us on our modest budget, and what remains to this day looking just as good as it did the day it was installed has been nothing short of spectacular. Everything California Closets installs is built in Alberta and guaranteed for life. Whether it's a spare bedroom doubling as a home office, your dream laundry room, or that walk-in closet you've always wanted, California Closets does it better than anyone else. You can request that free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. And shout out to Solar by Kuby. This is an incredible Alberta success story. 10 years ago, 2 electricians working in the oil patch saw an opportunity, bought one truck together, and started installing panels. Next thing you know, it's a decade later, 5,700 installs under their belts, including the Edmonton Convention Centre, Canada's first net zero fire hall, agricultural applications, and of course, thousands of homes across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC. Solar by Kubi offers quotes always for free, and you can get your free solar quote today. Make sure you're first in line when they start installing again this spring by visiting kubi.ca. That's KUBY.ca. In our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, joined by Heather Thomson, VP of Economy and Engagement at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, Mike Saunders, Senior VP at Qualico, and Kalen Anderson, the CEO at BILD Edmonton Metro. You know, we referenced this investable economy, one of the themes around this budget, Heather, and I guess it sounds great on paper, of course. It sounds inspiring. The tone around this table is measured but optimistic, I would say. But we have record food bank use, mortgage delinquencies. We have businesses saying that they can't find workers. How investable does that feel in real life?
Well, I think that's the whole point. That's why we need more investment. And when we look at the real impact of an economy that's not performing to its potential, we see this in everyday quality of life indicators like the food bank, like mortgage delinquency rates. And so from the Chamber's perspective, we always will want to make an investable economy. That's what we advocate on with all levels of government, because we know this has real impacts to Edmontonians, Albertans, and Canadians. And so when we went to go find the data to get us all on the same page to say, hey, where do we need to do this work? A lot of the data was either inconsistent or it wasn't there at all. And so that's why we kind of set it upon ourselves to make this State of the Economy report. And we looked at various indicators that showcase the economy's performance. So we looked at jobs, affordability, taxes, a whole bunch of different indicators. And so the report came out last week. And it was. We're definitely not saying that it was a story of failure. Far from it. We're saying that this is where we just need to focus. And so the report goes through all these, the way Edmonton's performing, and we compared it against Ottawa, Calgary, Winnipeg, Halifax, as well as Edmonton versus the region. And so it was just really interesting to see how the actual city is performing. And there's some great indications, and then there's a lot of areas that we do need to focus in, and that's the whole point. We want alignment, we want a strategic vision, and that's what we're hoping will come out of this report.
People can check it out at economy.edmontonchamber.com. We'll link to that in the show notes for the podcast and on YouTube. I essentially want to duplicate the question I asked you about the budget with regards to the State of the Economy report. Kalen, obviously the name of your organization, BILD Edmonton Metro. We talk about the Edmonton Metro region. What were you looking for in the specific context of Edmonton's performance now and what it might look like within a couple of years?
Yeah, so great question. Our organization does represent all of the 13 communities in the metro region, as well as occasionally some even further afield communities, depending on the context. So what the report revealed is, I think, maybe what a lot of folks would intuitively know or think. So thanks to the Chamber for writing it down. I guess the punchline is that, in sum, the regional municipalities have more wealth, more investment, and higher security in general than Edmonton, which deals with a lot more of the issues within the region as a whole that are expensive and challenging, and the wicked problems, as well as Edmonton's ongoing difficulty to attract and retain that non-residential tax base, which is rapidly eroding into the region. So what we're seeing right now is that, far be it from keeping on par the city's share, both on the residential side and especially on the non-residential, are moving into the region. So as BILD Edmonton Metro, frankly, as long as Edmonton's capital region, Alberta's capital region is doing well, that's great. But if you're really trying to dive deep on the diagnosis of the city of Edmonton, I think there's a lot of warning signs here that need to be heeded by this upcoming mayor and council.
Mike, you have an interesting position. At Qualico, when you're overseeing residential and commercial development. I'm sure that there are some common themes or common threads, but they can be two very different conversations, right? Do you have a consensus thought of the state of both, or do you need to treat each as its own animal?
Well, I think there's always been a discussion against the suburbs against urban areas like downtown, and I think that it can't be a binary discussion. What I think Edmonton really suffers is we need a more cohesive economic development strategy. It's something that we've been talking about for close to a decade. I remember sitting on the Municipal Affairs Committee at the Chamber talking about this, and the strategy was to amalgamate all the secondary markets around Edmonton. So, there's a lot of great things that's happening with Edmonton, our affordability, our young, talented workforce, but I think there's a lot of headwinds in front of us going into 2026, and we need to really define our Edmonton story. And the fact that the fiscal gap in Edmonton continues to largen, we need to have additional revenue sources outside of property tax. And you see very different stories, Edmonton relative to Calgary. I mean, their budget is double what ours are, but their assessment base is significantly larger than ours. So we need to be able to look at that, and I think having people who are professionals and know what they're talking about in that regard need to rally. So there's a lot of really great ingredients, but it just needs to be wrapped up a bit.
Yeah, we had an interesting interview pre-municipal election with Aaron Paquette, who had kind of a plan to save the city, and he was comparing Edmonton and Calgary. Just to be a nerd for a second, from a podcast perspective, downloads-wise, it was very clear that Councillor Paquette's message was resonating with people, and I think in both cities, which reiterated, I think, the value of it. Is it too soon to speculate around how this new council in Alberta's capital city might respond to this? I mean, it sounds to me like this is something that you and other business leaders have been calling for close to a decade. That represents 2.5 councils, and it sounds like there's been minimal, if little, or if any progress at all.
Yeah, no, I actually sat through a luncheon put on by BOMA yesterday, and Councillor Paquette was speaking about those exact things, so I may have been taking a couple of his speaking points. But, I mean, the positive thing with our council is I think there's a lot of respect amongst councillors for Mayor Knack, and I think there could be a lot of really great work from day one, and hopefully there will be a lot of alignment. It's just, what fiscal lens are they looking at? We can't keep spending. I'd love to spend on everything and try to treat everything as best we can. But the fact is that, it has to be pretty defined and rightful approach when it comes to spending on certain items.
Yeah, fair. I'll let the audience know, by the way, that was August 21st. I'm just showing it on my screen right now. August 21st. What a regrettable wardrobe choice I made that day. Just a very casual polo shirt, and in comes Councillor Paquette, just looking like he's going to the Oscars. Amazing. But the title of that episode, Calgary's Big Advantage and a Plan to Save Edmonton, August 21st. You can find it in our podcast and YouTube archives. Heather, I want to take a look at this. I mean, your team at the Edmonton Chamber has done a remarkable job summarizing the report. Plus, anybody can download it and read it in its entirety. The good. Yeah, we're growing. Yeah, we're resilient. Edmonton's economy is rooted in a solid foundation, rising regional exports, a healthy housing market, regionally high medium household incomes, in better shape than some. The bad, some serious catch-up to do. Job growth has slowed. Labor force participation has dropped. Edmonton's industrial tax competition, we were just hearing about that, heating up from other cities, including, you may say neighboring communities, and you don't blame them for being competitive. Plus, Edmonton's medium household income within the city has been stagnating, and the gist of it, growth has slowed. No, we're not panicking. We're just pacing ourselves. What's the average person? What are business owners? What are job seekers to take away from all?
Yeah, I think the good news is that we have the ingredients, and so when we look at what we need to do moving forward, there's a lot of solvable things. And when we look at things like we have a low median income or low median age here in Edmonton, that's great. However, when we look at the unemployment rate, nationally, and a large portion of that is young Canadians, and we have a young population, and so that's not great. So we have some elements and some facts that we need to address. So I would say the kind of highlight reel on that one is that we have a lot of jobs, we don't have a lot of workers. And there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why that is, and that's something that we need to invest in and figure that out, because we need young people taking the jobs that are available. And so that's just one of those things that we need to dive into. But I think generally speaking, like I said, it's not bad news. We just need some coordination. And, one of the things that we would like to see, ideally from a political standpoint, is we'd really like to see the city take this report and use it as a tool. We want to make sure that we're all working within the region Also on the report, you're going to see a spending analysis. So we were able to take 2024 as a whole year of spending, and we were able to see what did the region spend in the city of Edmonton, and then ultimately what were the visitors outside of the province spending in Edmonton, and where and what areas. So we're seeing that the Edmonton is crucial for economic activity for the whole region. And so one cannot be successful without the other. And what we're seeing is that Edmonton is not keeping up with its potential, especially comparative to the region and other cities. So we need coordination. We want to see the business community really involved in planning, whether it's with budget deliberations or policy considerations. We want to see the business community really involved in those decisions, because right now we have the data, we have the evidence. We've been talking about this for years, and now we want to get to work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm encouraged by this. Again, I'm referencing economy.edmontonchamber.com. More than 54,000 businesses call the Edmonton Metro region home, and that number's up. Edmonton rivaling Calgary for one of the largest business communities among peer metros. So we're not talking Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, right? But basically everybody else. Calgary home to about 63,500 businesses. Edmonton, 54,500. That's about 12,000 more businesses than the nation's capital. It's more than double the number of businesses in Winnipeg, and there's no need to take a shot at Halifax, but it more than triples Halifax. I mean, that to me is reason for optimism. Kalen, as you've reviewed the State of the Economy report over the past week or so, have you found reason? I know you to be an optimistic person and an optimistic leader. A lot of the talk around Edmonton, and in particular through this municipal election campaign, was really not, I wouldn't describe it as optimistic. We tend to point out our flaws and what needs to be improved, and that's understandable. Politicians are campaigning to be able to, have the keys to the castle and impose their perspective on what they think might work. But was there a positive takeaway for you that you're focusing on into this next couple of years?
Yeah, well, the most positive thing that I can point to very directly is that our region is doing among the best in the country in terms of providing that quality of life for Canadians. We have to sort of double down on what Heather said. We have every ingredient. We're young, we're growing, we're educated. That's the tagline of Edmonton Global, and I think that, as well as our airport, I should say, and that's critically important. So to have all of the post-secondaries that we do, I think 10% of our population is actually university students at this point, about 100,000. To think about the kinds of moves that our province has made to continue to try to grow our economy, and to think about, here's the real proof point. People are voting with their feet. So over the coming year, many economists are suggesting that Canada's population will grow about 1%, whereas Alberta's will grow by 3%. So that to me says we're being chosen, and that is a very strong green shoot. So over the election period, it's really easy to get very specific about your block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, hometown by hometown issues. But if you zoom out and look at the country, I wouldn't trade our position for almost anywhere.
Wow. Well, there you go.
Now, that being said, because we are at home, we should pick on the bits and pieces that are not going as well as they ought to be. But no, I'm bullish on Alberta and very, very optimistic about this city, Edmonton. And we're such an underrated community. That's part of our secret sauce.
I agree with you there 100%. Mike, it was announced just about 2 weeks ago now. No more hybrid work for the Alberta Public Service. Public sector workers will be ordered back to the office 5 days a week, or whatever the terms of their employment reflect. How big of a deal is that? I mean, does that send ripples through like the commercial real estate industry?
Absolutely. There's been many groups, BOMA, the DRC, the Chamber, have been calling for that for all throughout COVID. So I applaud the provincial government for doing that. Our hope now is that the city of Edmonton can respond as well. But, our retail economy in downtown Edmonton has suffered, and that's probably an understatement. So having people walking around downtown provides a sense of safety and security. Having people buying lunch, walking around, spending money, that cascading effect, that's so important. I agree with everything that Kalen said about Edmonton. I love the place. I do think there's a lot of opportunity for our downtown recovery. I applaud the provincial government on its recovery model. There's a lot of work to be done yet. And if all three levels of government can work towards a stronger, more safe and secure downtown, then, you've heard this so many times in our downtown investment plan that the Chamber and BILD had wrote. 1% of the land mass used to represent 10% of the tax base. Now it's down to 5.2%. So that's a real opportunity, bringing what is now 13,000 people living downtown. We have such an expansive downtown. That could be 30,000 people, 50,000 people. And what that does for overall competitiveness for Edmonton and the region, I think, is just it's such an opportunity for us.
People can check out business.edmontonchamber.com for details on the Chamber's State of the Economy event, which will go Friday, November 7th, starting at 11:30. The JW Marriott, just a pitching wedge or so from our historic Mercer Warehouse studio location. Heather, before that, just one closing thought. I mean, one of your key takeaways, obviously you were one of the authors of the report, but anything that really stuck with you thematically?
That stuck with me is that we have, time is of the essence at this point. We're losing our edge. We're losing our competitive edge with affordability, with jobs, because we need to make sure that we are coordinated in how we're dealing with a lot of the issues. I completely agree with what Kalen said. That's a national sentiment. People are like, Alberta's doing well. That's definitely the headline. But for how much longer? If we are not coordinated and we're not paying attention to some of these troubling signals that we're seeing within the economy. So I would say from an economic standpoint, yes, things are strong, things are going well, but we are not keeping up with our potential. I think we have way more potential as a city to do better and to keep up with the region. And I think that there's all the tools are there. This is good news. So we want to get to work and we want to see some meaningful change, and so we can make sure Edmonton is as strong as possible.
Fantastic stuff. We want to thank, of course, Heather Thomson, Mike Saunders, and Kalen Anderson for joining us for the budget breakdown here and helping us dive into it at an accessible level. We want to make sure that this audience, you've got business owners here, you've got workers, you've got public and private sector, you've got people from all across the province and beyond, and different age demographics as well. And I appreciate your three insights here on what is obviously a big day in Canadian commentary. Of course, you can learn more about what we've been talking about by visiting edmontonchamber.com, and you will find the link to the State of the Economy report right there on the home page. We're going to zoom out our lens in just a moment and take a look at, essentially Alberta, this budget, how it lands, and bigger picture, Alberta jobs, the Alberta economy long term. We've got a panel of 4 experts that will be joining us in just a moment, presented by our friends at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. But it is Wednesday, and every Wednesday, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper, we step outside the news cycle, if only for a moment, and take a look at the memories that lie in wait in this crown jewel that is Jasper National Park. It's My Jasper Memories, proudly presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper. And we wanted to put, if running is your thing, or even if it's not, and you're keen on the idea of getting out to the mountains and filling your lungs with that fresh mountain air, the Rebuild Jasper Run is set to go. Come out and run. Or even participate in a brisk walk. If you're looking for yet another reason to lace up your runners, this could be while the snow flies, everybody. An incredible opportunity there for you. The Rebuild Jasper Run will be taking place on November 29th, just a short time from now. Join other runners, join Jasperites for a festive, feel-good race right through the heart of Jasper. This is perfect for seasoned runners who know. I know that this has been a tradition for many of you Real Talkers. Every year when we talk about this, you let us know, but also for first-timers. If you've never done something like this before, you remember the Pints and Pinot Run? That's what we used to call this. This event was rebranded in 2024 as the Rebuild Jasper Run, a heartfelt initiative to support that Jasper community following the devastating wildfires. And thanks to your support that year, they raised more than $25,000 for the Jasper Community Team Society, the Jasper Volunteer Fire Brigade as well. and we're looking to make an even bigger impact in 2025. You can check out the details on the link in the show notes here. We're going to punch it into the live chat as well for those of you that are streaming us live. Again, the Rebuild Jasper Run set to take place on November 29th. Now, running may not be your thing, but of course, still, you're looking at this as a time of year when Jasper just absolutely comes to life. I want to remind you, if you're looking on behalf of maybe your family, your girlfriends, your guys looking to get out, or maybe even a corporate bonding event. Maybe you're looking for a team building event. Don't forget, for a limited time, stays between right now all the way through till December 12th are eligible to receive a digital prepaid Mastercard up to $175 with bookings through Tourism Jasper. I'm showing you the website right now. You can always check out jasper.travel for more on the Jasper Hotel offer. Now, the offer will change the terms will adjust depending on where you're staying. But all you need to know is that at jasper.travel through the Jasper Hotel offer, you can find details on receiving a digital prepaid Mastercard. Again, this could go all the way up to $175 with bookings through Tourism Jasper. I'm looking right now. Sunwapta Falls, Rocky Mountain Lodge, Alpine Village, Whistler's Inn, right in the heart of Jasper's downtown, Marmot Lodge, Tonquin Inn, Chateau Jasper, the Miette Mountain Cabins. Absolutely love those. The incomparable Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge, Glacier View Lodge, the Astoria Hotel. My fellow party animals know all about the Astoria. What about the Lobstick Lodge, the Crimson, the Overlander, the Forest Park, the Jasper Inn and Suites? You get this. The list goes on. Pyramid Lake Lodge, the Pine Bungalows, Patricia Lake Bungalows, Park Place Inn, Bear Hill Lodge, the Athabee, Jasper's Downtown Hostel. They all qualify. Plus, there's more that we haven't mentioned. You'll find the comprehensive list on the easy-to-use website. Again, that's our friends at Tourism Jasper. That's jasper.travel. The Jasper Hotel Initiative. You're not going to want to miss out on this one, friends. Put a little money back into your pocket. I would suggest maybe leave that extra money out there in Jasper with those hoteliers, those restaurateurs, those retailers that are working so hard to keep their doors open in this iconic mountain town. We're so proud to partner with our friends at Tourism Jasper with My Jasper Memories, presented weekly right here on the show by our friends at Tourism Jasper. Now, once a month, we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, Shauna Feth, to the show. And Shauna, you've always got your eye on Alberta business, but you come today with an incredible roster of experts, and we're so grateful for that. Welcome back. It's wonderful to see your face. Joining you remotely, Nancy Healy is connecting with us. Nancy is the Commissioner for Employers for Canada. Joining us in studio, Sabrina Reschny, a partner at Deloitte Canada, and Dr. Melanie Humphreys, president of the King's University. Melanie's also chair of the Alberta Post-Secondary Network. Welcome to you all. It's nice to have you here.
Nice to be here too. Thanks for having us.
Melanie, you and I have just determined as well that we have a link that goes back 25 years to our own post-secondary journey. Can you believe it? It's incredible to have you here in studio, and I'm so grateful to reconnect. I want to ask, and we'll ask this entire panel, we're going to be talking about building Alberta's talent future, and I think that our friends at the Edmonton Chamber set the table perfectly, talking about the workforce and talking about jobs and some of the fiscal realities. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask experts like you for your first thoughts, or at least the key points that jumped out at you with Budget 2025. Shauna, what's one thing you were keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I think, so Heather did a really good job. I mean, the investment into development and productivity across the country is at a critical juncture. This is the time we need it. We know we've had a productivity lag. We know that in terms of investment confidence, we're really declining. And so the signal, like, it's a very aspirational budget. So the proof is in the pudding, what my grandma would say. The proof is definitely in the pudding in terms of actually executing, because it's going to have to happen rapidly. This can't be a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year timeline. This has to be, we need wins, and we need them quickly so that we can reinstall that investor confidence into the country and get some of these major projects built and some of that infrastructure in place that we've been asking for a long time. And I mean, as a Chamber of Commerce, it's concerning, the level of debt and the deficit that we see in this budget. That's something we always talk about, is that fiscal responsibility. But, if investment into future growth and productivity and investment into our country actually happens, then maybe it's a good time to be investing for a better future for all of our children.
Sabrina, you're a partner at Deloitte. Everybody's going to perk up as soon as they know that you're here on the panel. What's one sort of a theme or one element of Budget 2025 that really resonated with you?
So for me, I think it would be one thing that stood out was immigration. I don't think that we were so surprised to see the reductions around immigration and what that's going to mean for Alberta. I think it does put that emphasis on the employers around really identifying those critical skills that they need and seeing their talent pools within Alberta and how they're going to attract talent in different ways. So there could be some challenges with that, but opportunity given just how much high population we have, high unemployment that we have, and how ready of a workforce that we have to match into those jobs.
We don't have workforce sustainability if we don't have a robust post-secondary network, if we don't have students believing wholeheartedly that the juice is worth the squeeze, that it's worth their investment, that they can catch up to the carrot that's dangling in front of them. Melanie, how about you? I mean, as chair of the Alberta Post-Secondary Network, you're viewing budgets through a pretty unique lens.
Yes, that's all of the colleges, polytechnics, and universities in the province. So it's quite a group. And we definitely saw the nation building pieces as aspirational, as very, very good. And the nation buildings will be infrastructure that comes our way. And how do we make sure that infrastructure gets invested in Alberta? The piece there that will be really critical, how do students also see, like you mentioned, their way into those jobs that we will, that will go from here into those infrastructure pieces. So it is pretty significant the devil's in the details, as Shauna just said. Mm-hmm.
Nancy, thank you so much for joining us remotely. It's nice to see you back on the show. I think many people will remember, you served on the board of directors at the Newfoundland Labrador Credit Union. You're a past president of the Chamber of Commerce Executives of Canada, past directors of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, either through that experience or even in your current role. What's something that you were keeping a keen eye on as that budget dropped just about 12 hours ago? Well, let me say 20 hours ago.
Well, I was looking for whether there would be any further changes to employment insurance measures, and that's something we didn't see. There were a number of changes that were introduced in the beginning of the year that are going to continue. So in some regards, some relief that there weren't any new measures. I, too, was concerned looking at the immigration numbers. I was concerned with the reduction that we're going to see there. I haven't seen the breakdown between the IMP program, the Temporary Foreign Worker program. There was one little nugget there that I did take some heart in that, in the budget, the government recognized the importance of the Temporary Foreign Worker program to rural and remote parts of the country. And I know I've been working with the Alberta Chamber and a number of the smaller chambers in remote and in the resort communities. And I know how critically important that program is. So I take some solace and I wait for the details, as the devil is in the details. But I take some solace that there could be something coming down the pipe for rural and remote communities with respect to the Temporary Foreign Worker program.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a big one. Obviously, Shauna, and Alberta's employers, Kalen Anderson in particular, just a few minutes ago, talking about that cautious optimism. Mm-hmm. I know that seems to be kind of a theme with Alberta's entrepreneurs and employers, right? Bullish, not necessarily risk averse, but realistic at the same time. When it comes to that optimism, as employers are struggling to fill roles across sectors, what are you hearing? I mean, the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, obviously with hundreds and hundreds of members, what are the biggest pinch points when it comes to attracting and retaining talent?
Yeah, Ryan. Well, we have our Alberta Perspective research and data platform that we use, and in one of our most recent polls, believe it or not, still upwards of 50% of businesses in the province of Alberta are saying that they are struggling to find the people that they need. And so that's a split. That 50% is roughly 30% saying it's technical skills that we're lacking, so we don't have the people with the technical skills needed. The other 20% roughly is saying it's actually more the social skills, and the people love to call them soft skills. I call them transformational skills, but those skills in terms of customer service, how to engage with people, interact with the customers, and some of that is just really where we can find that space to train some of these students through opportunities like work integrated learning. So we know, the technical skills, we really have to address that. So what technical skills are we missing, in the province? But the soft skill side can be really addressed as we look at other opportunities for integration into the workforce earlier on in their academic careers.
Can I just say, as a communicator, the evolution from soft skills to transformational skills is such an improvement. Soft skills to me sounds like something that is not a priority at all. It's like the things that you develop if you have time or if it's convenient, but obviously incredibly important.
It is actually. This comes from my previous life at the University of Alberta, when we were talking about the difference between transactional skills and individuals needing to have those and the soft skills. And I said, but the soft skills are actually the hardest. They're way harder to teach. So that's where that evolution came into transformational, and I've been using it ever since, because we really need to understand that it's not easy to train on some of that stuff. And and especially young people have some anxiety around some of those interactions and engagements. So how do we create that safe space for them to learn those skills so that they can be really engaged employees for our future businesses?
Nancy, from a national perspective, how does Alberta's labor market challenge compare to what you're seeing elsewhere in Canada? I think that's something that people would find real value in that perspective. Like, what makes Alberta's response to it stand out to you?
Yeah, interesting question. And, Alberta's had labor shortages for a long time, growing economy, leading the nation in GDP. And that has, stimulated job growth and population growth. And I found it, fascinating from just listening to the previous panel, how, Canada's population is going to grow by 1%, but Alberta is going to grow by 3% in the coming years. So you're doing some things right. You're very advanced and progressive in your recruitment and marketing, in your credential recognition. But the mature relationships that you have between the academic institutions and the employer community, as evidenced by the panel here today, but also the talent symposium and the other initiatives that are taking place. So Alberta, I think, has been experiencing these challenges for a while. That can be frustrating to a certain extent, but you've developed the ecosystem to be able to respond. And I think you're going to be ahead of the curve on the other provinces who are probably lagging behind, or for the first time are experiencing labor shortages and higher job vacancy rates.
Dr. Humphreys, you're leading collaboration across Alberta's post-secondary system, as you noted. How are colleges and universities working with employers to better align programs with the skills that Alberta's economy truly needs?
Yes, that's a very good question. So we're heavily invested in work integrated learning and partnering with employers across the post-secondary. And the data actually is really interesting. So if you look across the colleges, polytechnics, and universities, 95% of our graduates are employed after 2 years post-graduation. So where's the gap? Like, if these students are learning these skills, and what is the population that is being missed in this transformation? Can we actually? There's also a gap between how many students leave high school and actually attend a post-secondary. And so are those the students, or are those the individuals that are not actually getting upskilled? And so I'd question, like, are we missing a piece of our population that really could be an answer to some of the questions that we have about how do employers find people?
Yeah.
Where are they? And are these Albertans? Are these new immigrants? Like, how do we make sure that everybody gets not left behind? Like, there's a segment there that we're missing.
My son is 10.
Yeah.
And he asked me the other day, I picked him up from school. He asked me the other day, he said, "Dad, what if I don't want to go to university? And you get like a tiny little, as a parent, every once in a while you get a question, and immediately I'm like, buddy, you do it. I mean, like, he's 10, right?
Right.
He just can't wait for school to be over every single day. Favorite part of school every day is recess.
Right.
But he's not sure. And maybe when he's 18, he'll feel the same way. I mean, Hollis is in our live chat right now, says, I never once considered post-secondary. Hard work and a willingness to give and take has done me well in my working life. University college is not the only way. Credentialism does run rampant here. Alberta's not alone there.
No, and 100%. Like, we talk a lot about in the post-secondary about finding your right path, right? So how do we engage each Albertan in a way that is constructive and engaged in this economy? There is research that points to if you do attend a post-secondary, you have better outcomes in terms of economy and earnings and all of that. But there's also lots of different paths that people take, right? So we even talk within the post-secondary, it's not whether you have to go to a university or whether you have to go to a college or whether you go to a polytechnic.
Sure.
We truly, around that table, say, okay, where do we help these students find their path?
Yeah.
Because we want them all to be engaged and find their place.
Yeah, it's so funny. As mentioned, you and I on the same university campus, 25. I shouldn't keep saying how many years ago it was. It's just making me feel. I think it adds to the perception that we bring wisdom to the table now.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's funny. I look at my own career and my development, and my university degree did absolutely nothing to get me my first job. It was my polytechnic diploma that got me my first job. However, my university education shaped the person that I am and what I bring to the table in the jobs that I have, right? I wouldn't change a thing. Even though there was probably more years than I had to do. I think I could have been a surgeon with the number of years I was there.
You know, you look back and you see each stage of your life informs the next one, right? So it's hard to tease those apart. You might have, not stepped into your polytechnic degree if you hadn't actually been at this university that formed you. So, yeah, I tell students, you're not going to take a wrong step. Step out, try something, take a risk. If you don't like it, then let's change it. Let's figure out what really interests you. And because as much as we want to say these students are going to do this thing for our economy, if they hate it, it's going to be miserable and it's not going to be good for anybody.
Yeah.
So how do we help each student find where they fit best and have the skills to be able to engage and do really well, the transformational skills that our economy needs? And our country needs, quite frankly.
Yeah, no kidding. So, Shauna, one of the task force big priorities I know is bridging that gap between education and employment. Can you talk about how initiatives like that Talent Pipeline Management Academy are fitting into that bigger goal of strategically developing more talent?
Yeah, so this is part of phase 2 of the Talent Development Task Force that's been running for the past 4 years. We've talked about it before, but just as a review, that's a partnership between the Alberta Chambers of Commerce and the Alberta Post-Secondary Network with the real intention of being able to match those students to industry. And so in phase 2 of the project now, what we're doing is we're launching the Talent Pipeline Management System. What that is it's the brainchild of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Right now it's running in about 47 states in the United States, and the real uniqueness about it is it's industry driven. So it starts with industry talking about what are their actual needs before we talk about sweeping program changes at the post-secondary level. And it's about industry saying, okay, these are the skills that are still lacking. How do we look at setting up potentially a micro-credential that will address just that specific competency? The other thing that's really unique about it is we can do it in a couple ways. We can do it geographically. So we can say in Grand Prairie, we have these challenges around this specific industry, and this is the talent that we need in this region. And it can be really, really focused in on ensuring that that pipeline is being navigated in partnership with industry, in partnership with post-secondary, in partnership with the students and other associations that are supporting that. The other piece it can do is it can be industry driven. So it can be a provincial thing, but it could be one industry that's experiencing shortages across the province in that specific industry. So it's very unique in terms of how focused we can get on the actual challenge and how much quicker we can respond to the needs of the students and the needs of industry and the employers so that we get those matches happening much quicker.
Yeah, matches, huge, obviously. Sabrina, Deloitte working with companies correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure across basically every sector on workforce transformation. What trends are you seeing in how employers are developing talent, whether it's through like upskilling or leadership development or new hiring approaches? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so firstly, I just want to start with AI is completely disrupting the way that we're working and how we think about work. So we're seeing employers really having to think about how they use technology and with the human essentially to do our jobs. So with that, some of the key trends is around skills, like you've been talking about. Employers are really looking at what are those critical skills that we need, and do we need to upskill? Do we need to reskill? Do we need to look across different talent pools to find that skill? We're also seeing what you've talked about around soft skills. So we call them enduring human capabilities. And it's really like these are long learning pathways within organizations around creativity, problem solving, active listening. These are skills that just won't be replaced by machines. So lots of emphasis on that into learning programs. We're also seeing the talent mix. Instead of that 8 to 5 job, we're seeing that full-time, part-time, gig workers, complement just how to get the work done.
Yeah.
When it comes from, I would say, hiring, we're seeing a trend towards looking for potential, like talent potential versus just lived experiences. And then we're seeing like job descriptions changing, and I'm sure everyone has started to notice that, where there's less basis on the task and more around what are those skills that we really need to get the work done. Lastly, I would leave it with leadership development. We're seeing an emphasis around change. So how can we equip leaders to be change ambassadors to help employees really thrive in ambiguity, thrive in all these different digital tools, equipping with our employees. So ultimately, I would say the biggest trend is around continuous learning.
Gilles is in our live chat powered by Park Power. He says, full disclosure, I am a post-secondary instructor, so I am obviously biased. He says, but let's be clear, it doesn't need to be university, but post-secondary is very important to developing skilled workers and to truly grow the economy. Nancy, retention is a growing concern everywhere. I can't estimate how many times that we've used that, recruitment and retention over the past couple of years throughout interviews, especially as workers, as Sabrina said, are expecting more flexibility, more purpose, more growth opportunities. What are you hearing from employers about what's working to keep talent engaged and committed?
Yeah, I think it first comes down, something Melanie said first. Are they on the right path? You want to make sure that the people that you hire, that they're in the position and in the career that they're happy with. So it starts with the hiring and making sure that they're the right fit for the culture that you have. And every business and workplace has a different culture. A hospital has a different culture than a construction site or an office environment. So you want to make sure that the people are the right fit for the culture. But then you need to keep developing, enhancing that culture. Listen to your employees and respond to them. And you don't just do it once a year in an employee feedback survey. You need to do it on a regular basis to make sure that employees and workers feel like they're listened to. If they make suggestions on how things they may want to change, and you can't do it, you need to be upfront and explain to them why you're not able to do that, or maybe you can incorporate some element of it. The other thing that I think is really important, the businesses that survive are those that evolve and change, because the world is very dynamic and the world of business is constantly changing. And so you need to ensure that your labor force is evolving with you. And so that's where I think employers need to have a commitment to training and upskilling. Now, that doesn't necessarily always have to be a formalized training. It could be mentorship from a more senior person within an organization, but always putting that emphasis on encouraging your workers to take training. Just today I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, my policy analyst, and I encouraged her to use AI. I don't want it to take over her job. I want her to be able to use it to be able to do things more effectively, to prepare PowerPoint presentations, or to gather some research. So that is something. There are a lot of threats and disruptions coming our way with respect to artificial intelligence. How do you encourage it and embrace it so that it's something that's a tool that employees can use and benefit their efforts.
Sabrina, I see you're nodding as you're hearing the comment. Are employers using like data and analytics to rethink strategies on building culture or loyalty in today's environment?
Yeah, definitely. And just as she's mentioned, it really does start with the culture. So the organization really needs to be clear in what, values and behaviors are most important to them. And then in doing that, before even using the data, just determining if they want to reinforce that culture, if they want to adjust it. And then comes data. And data can come to play in a big way. Leaders have so much access to workforce analytics data. So when we look at it, we think of quantitative and qualitative. So the quantitative being attrition rates, compensation, hard data facts that really tell you what's going on. And then from a qualitative, this is more like the softer, the feelings, the perceptions, the observations, really how employees are experiencing work. And when you take both of them, you can really line up your data to really determine, are you driving the right behaviors to either, continue the culture that you have, or do you need to make those adjustments? And then you can make some decisions around that. But I would caution, data is one point. You also need data in the hands of leaders that are experienced, that are curious, that have some intuition, and then you can really solve around that culture and that loyalty.
Curious is one of my favorite words. We make a promise to this audience that we will be perpetually curious, and I love it. Our post-secondaries, let me ask, how are post-secondaries? Because, this isn't just about finding jobs, right? It's not just about plugging somebody into a job so that you can say, 89% of our graduates find work within the first 6 months, right? You want to be helping graduates find lasting or develop lasting, meaningful careers, in particular in Alberta, if we're talking about talent retention. So how are post-secondaries doing that?
Absolutely. It's really about fit. We try to embed students already in the workforce before they actually graduate. So the work integrated learning is a great example of that. And students make they quickly look at culture in an institution or in a business and think, nope, this is not for me, and they check out pretty quickly. So they're pretty savvy to what they see on the ground, and so they're also looking for what is going to match with what I need in my life in the business community. So if the business community is also not looking to develop a healthy culture, they see that right off the start. So I think that students who find that good match and are embedded already in jobs here in Alberta tend to stay in Alberta because they've developed a community, they've developed the workplace that they want to be invested in, and then it's a natural thing for them to build their lives here and not move somewhere else.
Shauna, this is Alberta's been the first province, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, to scale up that TPM model. And this task force, I know, has brought together a powerful coalition that you and your team at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce are very proud of. By the way, people can check out abchamber.ca for more on the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, their advocacy, the benefits of membership, their initiatives, everything we're discussing here and more. But what's your vision as leader? We're talking a lot about leadership and vision. You're the president and CEO for Alberta's talent ecosystem, let's say, 5 years from now.
So the vision is just that we have the most robust system in Alberta of any other jurisdiction, that we have the ability to really ensure that at a younger age, we're capturing these new employees, these students, that we're doing a much better job of, even in the K-12 system, of making sure that they have the skills and a career path that would actually help inform them before they hit the post-secondary system, because there's a gap there too. Like, kids are hitting post-secondary and they don't even really know what they want to do yet. So we need to step it back. We need to take a look at the K-12 system, do some of that skills development, some of that career education at an earlier age. So then when they hit PSIs, we have a system in place that we've got those work integrated learning opportunities available to them. So when they graduate, and it's going to be a layering effect. So this is not going to be, it's going to be very different. The vision is very different 5 years from now, because it's not going to be potentially, I'm going to go take a 4-year degree. It may potentially be, okay, I'm going to take this, and this at this institution. I'm going to do work integrated learning here. I may upskill or reskill here. and looking at how our apprenticeship models work. I think all of that needs to be re-examined, and I know the PSIs are completely open to this, and they're very, very much self-aware of the fact that it's not going to be the same world 5 years from now because students aren't learning the same way. I think the one thing that can't be detracted from a four-year degree, for instance, from going to university or college, is that critical ability to learn. So it sounds so silly, but what universities do really well, and this is probably what you took away too, Ryan, and to your comment, is it's teaching us to be lifelong learners. It's teaching us how to learn, and it's teaching us the discipline of how to do that. That's never going to be gone. That's always going to need to be there at a very foundational level. But how we learn, the modems and modalities in which we learn, because everybody learns differently, all of that's going to change. So I mark my words, like 5 years from now, I think we're going to have a very different landscape in Alberta because of things like the talent pipeline management system, finding new, unique and innovative ways of training our workforce to make sure that we have the skills we need and that our industry have the people that they need.
Nancy, you've been nodding the whole time that Shauna's been laying this out, and so I want to go to you next. And actually, I'm going to go around the table as we wrap this panel with the same question. I'm curious to see how each of you will take it on. Nancy, we'll go to you first. I mean, if you could leave one message with Alberta employers, policymakers that are going to be seeing this episode about what it takes to build and keep the best talent, what would it be?
Well, I think I mentioned before, invest in training, but I think one of the challenges, and I'll suggest this for the policymakers, and you recognize that the vast majority of employers are small businesses. Even in some regards are considered micro businesses. Less than 10 employees, and so they don't have the capacity necessarily to identify what their training needs are or to invest in training. So if we can find a way to encourage that, I mean, Shauna mentioned, we need to have a culture of lifelong learning. It's easy, and you can see it in large employers, and say, as I mentioned, like a hospital sector. There's constant training programs being offered, but smaller businesses have a great difficulty identifying what the skill needs are that they need their workers to have, and where they can access this training. So it has to be accessible to them financially, time-wise, and so finding a way that we can build training into the workday.
Sabrina, same question to you. Your one message to employers, to policymakers on basically developing and keeping the best talent.
I really do think it's about identifying those critical skills and investing in continuous learning, upskilling, reskilling, and attracting talent in different ways. I think there's so much possibility for Alberta ahead.
Melanie?
It's really meeting people where they need to be. So as students, and finding their pathway into a post-secondary. So we really need a strong post-secondary. Like, let's not fool ourselves here. And we also need that connection, that very personal connection with the workplace. So it's a handoff. It really is.
Shauna, last word to you.
Just that I would invite everybody to join us for our Talent Development Symposium coming up on November 19th. Actually, all of these lovely ladies around the table will actually be there. So if you want to have a conversation with any one of them, you can have a conversation with them. And then followed by a fall board meeting and deputy minister's dinner. So we're really excited about those two big events, and really excited about convening that conversation between industry, post-secondary, and all of the other key stakeholders in that talent pipeline system to have that conversation and move this needle a little bit forward. And I just would say, to very last words, we should be very proud in Alberta because we are the first to have ever done a lot of this work. When I travel outside of Alberta, I always have the comment of the partnership that we have with the Alberta Post-Secondary Network is absolutely unique, that you have the business community with all of the post-secondaries in the province working together to find solutions to our talent needs is absolutely unique. And then to layer in the adoption of the talent pipeline management system, which is nowhere else in Canada at this point across the province over the next 3 years. We've been very reactive and cutting edge in terms of how we are looking at this big challenge of talent in our province.
Again, that's November 19th, right here in Alberta's capital city, from 8:30 to 4, the 2025 Talent Development Symposium, presented by Alberta Chambers of Commerce. And you can learn more on their website, abchamber.ca. We'll actually link to the specific event to make it nice and easy for you in the show notes after the fact. That team is led by Shauna Feth, President and CEO. Nancy Healy, kind enough to be joining us remotely today. Nancy, it's wonderful to see you again. Dr. Melanie Humphreys, it's so nice to have you in studio. Chair of the Alberta Post-Secondary Network and, of course, President at the King's University. And Sabrina Reschny with Deloitte Canada. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful stuff. Real Talkers, we'll look to you. We're going to get to your comments in the live chat, not just on this. Many of you are actually sharing right now about your own post-secondary journeys and how that's translated into success or not in the workforce. I love that real talk. And of course, we're always curious to hear from those of you that are going to be listening to this later on the podcast or finding this episode on YouTube. You can always send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Now, if this has lit a fire under you, if you're taking this as a sign from the universe that now is the time to invest in yourself and pursue that post-secondary journey, we want to make sure that Athabasca University is all over your radar. They are Canada's open university with world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. You know, there's a lot of people, probably thousands right now across Alberta and across Canada that would love to enter that workforce, that would love to seize the moment, seize the day, but there have been barriers, or at least perceived barriers, standing in your way of going back to school, whether it's a remote location where you're living, whether it's obligations you have to your family. Maybe you're working 2 jobs just to try to keep your head above water. There are AU advantages. You can learn more about them by visiting the website, athabascau.ca. You can even apply, learn more about financial supports, transfer credits, and more. Again, Athabasca University online at athabascau.ca. 2025, a huge year for our friends at Friesen Brothers as they celebrate 70 years, still Alberta grown and Alberta owned. This winter, they're butchers. And this is like the basis of Friesen Brothers. This is where it all started. A butcher shop in Hinton, Alberta. Humble beginnings and grown into an incredible Alberta success story. Well, they're butchers in 2025 crafting something truly special. This is the sun-dried tomato turkey sausage. It's not going to last forever, but it's sun-dried tomatoes, fresh turkey, simple ingredients, full of flavor, and only available through the cold fall and winter months. You can pick up a pack from your Friesen Brothers Butcher Shop today or learn more by visiting the Butcher Shop link on their website. That's friesen.com. Hey, did you happen to catch our most recent episode of the show? Every Tuesday, you know, we're so proud to partner with the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation to tell the stories of the echoes of the Alex as the Royal Alexandra Hospital, the Royal Alex they'll call it, celebrates 125 years. This week, it's the story of the Allen family. Just a remarkable legacy. 2 dads, 2 sons, 4 generations of care at the Royal Alexandra, including innovative surgeries and more. That's just one of the many echoes of the Alex. We want to hear your echo of the Alex. We know that that hospital has touched so many people in so many different ways. And if you are inspired to consider supporting the Royal Alex through its next 125 years, we want to encourage you to give as you're able, whether a one-time gift or maybe even a recurring monthly gift. You can check out givetoRoyalAlex.org for more on that. This week, I'm so proud to be joining our friends at UCAN Youth Services out in the West End. Tomorrow night, I'll have details on my social media if you'd like to join us as they blaze forward with their mission to put more skilled young workers into Alberta's workforce. They're doing that in a couple of different ways through their Verto project and their Road to Work program. Now, as we've just heard, university's not a fit for everybody. The Road to Work program is a collaboration between UCAN Youth Services and companies in the construction, road building, and traffic safety industries. So these are candidates aged 18 to 25 years old that have a ton of potential. They've got the motivation, but they just need a door to open up in front of them. This is a paid program, the Road to Work program, with successful candidates starting at a $15 per hour wage, but it'll give you the tools that you need to enter those industries: construction, road building, and traffic safety. You earn while you learn, and you'll graduate with safety certifications. You'll understand how to use basic power tools. You're equipped to step into a job site and immediately start to contribute. Start to forge your own path. Start to build your own career. The deliverables on this program are absolutely incredible. The success stories are so inspiring. You can learn more about the Road to Work program either as an employer, maybe as a potential participant, or as somebody who knows a young person where this sounds like it could be a great fit. Again, you can check that out online at ucan.ca. Fast-moving episode with a whole bunch of wonderful perspectives. I want to thank our, 7 different panelists joining us. We've heard from these federal political leaders. And then, of course, the storylines that we haven't spent a ton of time talking about, including that floor crossing, which is, floor crossings are typically significant no matter what. But when it comes to a government looking at a razor-thin margin of trying to get its budget passed, the federal government needs those. Mark Carney's minority government needs those 3 votes. Now they need 2, presumably, now that they've lured over Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont, formerly a Conservative, now, of course, as a Liberal. So they've still got those 2 votes that they're going to need to grab. I saw some of the comments earlier in the episode from Real Talkers that were tuning in. Matt wondered, he says, I'd be curious to know if other Conservative MPs, other interested Conservative MPs will still consider crossing the floor or may consider crossing the floor in future. Smurfy says, I wonder if that floor crosser, MP D'Entremont, was promised anything. I mean, you have to assume yes. You have to assume parliamentary secretary of or some sort of a position. But let's also remember that if this minority government loses the confidence of the House, in other words, later this month, if they don't get the votes they need to pass the budget, and my guess is that they will, but if they don't get the votes that they need, then that means that Canadians are headed back to an election. And we all know that floor crossers are very rarely rewarded by the voters that sent them to Ottawa in this case in the first place. The only floor crosser that I can think off the top of my head that came out looking all right was Danielle Smith. But keep in mind, she also had to wait for more than 10 years before voters forgave her for merging, essentially, the Wild Rose Party with Jim Prentice's PCs. Typically, floor crossers are punished by voters, and it's not hard to understand why. If you sent a Conservative MP to Ottawa, if you used your vote to vote for the Conservatives and you were thrilled to see them win that riding in Nova Scotia or otherwise, and then that MP crosses the floor to join your arch enemies. I hate to use the loaded language, but let's be real. That's how these two parties feel about each other. They may talk a lot about collaboration. They may talk about the political tone that they want to set in Ottawa, but crossing the floor in many circumstances, an unforgivable sin. So you have to assume, Johnny, that in this case, Chris D'Entremont is betting on the fact that this budget is going to pass, that this government is going to survive, that he will play an elevated role. Who knows if there were personality? There could be a million things that happen behind the scenes.
Sure.
But it is pretty wild to see somebody cross the floor. This election was April 28th off the top of my head. April 28th, crosses the floor on the 4th of November. That's not a lot of time in between for somebody to change teams.
No. As a DJ, I love a floor crosser. Cross the floor, come on the floor, stay on the floor.
Your whole job is to get people to cross the floor.
Stay on the right side of the floor. Not that any side is right. But, if you're a Liberal, you love this. If you're a Conservative, you hate it. But we've seen it before. You just mentioned our Premier did the same thing. So, it obviously shows, extreme, you're very
confidence in the government.
You're very confident in the budget, obviously, right? And a lot of people seeing this budget and they're seeing debt. But I said this about tariffs. Which country has a good tariff deal with Donald Trump? Not many. Which country isn't running a deficit right now? Isn't in debt since COVID, since 2020? And the main thing I wanted to see from this budget was growth, right? Initiatives to see growth, industry growth, investment growth, and I saw that, so I'm happy with it. Am I happy that it's billions of dollars in more in debt? I don't think anyone is.
No.
But could the Conservatives have come through if Pierre Poilievre was in power with a budget that didn't put us more in debt? At this point in the country's history, I don't think so. And maybe they could have shaved off a few billion here, a few billion there, 10 billion here, whatever. But the thing I'm most happy about is seeing the industry investment, the growth investment, and I think everyone's happy. It wasn't one thing that I wanted to necessarily see, but I think everyone likes the cuts to immigration.
Well, not everybody, but
you know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
Like slowing down on that side of growth for the country and investing more right here in Canada. I think everyone was kind of happy with that. Is anyone ever happy to see us go more in debt?
Of course
Never.
not.
Never.
And it's not surprising to see Poilievre point out obviously a $7-8 billion deficit. He's
Sure.
like that's a major number, and it
Huge,
is
huge.
And I didn't expect to see Pierre Poilievre support the budget.
No.
We don't typically try to line up. Well, this is I was about to tell a tiny little bit of a white lie.
Go ahead.
I know. I'm actually getting ahead of it and apologizing in advance of telling the tiny little white lie. And I was going to say we don't strategize on our panels all the time to make sure we have conservatives or liberal voices, because actually we do that. But I wanted to say today what we wanted to do was bring in leaders in industry, in business, in post-secondary, in jobs. We wanted to talk about the workforce. We wanted to talk about recruitment, retention. We wanted to touch on a whole bunch of different things, housing, community building. Yeah. And I think that we did. But I would say, and we don't ask our panelists how they vote, but I would say that there were probably more small C conservatives represented around the Real Talk roundtables today than small L liberals. I don't know that to be a fact, but that would be my hunch. And one of the things I picked up is that there seemed to be some high points, aside from Kalen Anderson with BILD Edmonton Metro. I appreciate her candor saying home builders hate this budget, which I think is an angle that we'll want to follow up on. I think that's intriguing as Canada continues to face a housing crunch. But Heather Thomson, Mike Saunders talking about how, they took things away from this budget that were very positive, that they gave them reason for optimism. I think that that's something that Canadians, regardless of how you voted, that's something that you can feel good about. Like I said, it's not a bad thing to hear Yves-François Blanchet say, he did Mark Carney a solid in saying that, this is a red, what did he say? This is a red budget. He said this is a budget that Stephen Harper would have signed off on. That's a compliment.
Why would you say that?
Well, Pierre Poilievre's going, damn it!
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And there's other things in the budget. I think right off the bat, the 16,000, private sector jobs, nobody likes to see that. Another projected, 28,000. So we're looking at over 40,000 by 2029. Nobody likes to see that, but we did have to cut somewhere, right? And so there are aspects of this budget that I thought were good. There are always parts that are bad. I don't think you've ever seen a perfect budget, and I don't think Carney was in a position where he couldn't do certain things and in other areas not spend money, right? We have to spend money. We have to draw investment. We have to create industry and investment. And I think this budget is going to do that. But time will tell. You can't just say, hey, this budget is amazing. We have to see 3, 4, 5, 6 years out how this thing ended up shaping Canada. But right now, I do think it is a historical budget. Right off the bat, I think, we saw numbers, estimates that were out of line, right? Remember they were saying it was going to be 70, 80,000 cuts to the private sector. It was below that. We saw the immigration cuts go above. It was almost half. Right? We cut of immigration coming to this country when we thought it was going to be way lower. So we'll have to see what happens. But today, even, our panels, everyone's looking at this positively. For the most part, they're hoping that this is successful, right? So
you're kind of looking at it like the die has been cast. So here's what it's going to look like. Here's the government's priorities. Now, how are you going to manage, or what does this mean for your, application in your workforce, your industry, right?
Also, this budget can be refined over the next, 4 or 5 days, can it not? The NDP leader said that. I know she got up there and said we aren't happy with the budget, but she also said, we can. There's going to be refinements to the budget, but we'll see over the next week. But overall, what did you think of it?
We
haven't talked to Ryan Jesperson
yet. No, it's okay. I would rather be provide the platform for the people here. Metamodern Sound says you can have monetary debt or infrastructure or social debt.
Sure.
There's no free lunch. Plain Power says, are we all forgetting that the provincial premiers demanded an increase in immigration? Alberta's kind of walked the line there. If you heard Dimitrios Nikolaitis, education minister, on here, there's kind of the soft soft undertones, that, like increased immigration. And it's true that increased immigration to all of the countries, but in particular, Alberta has contributed to pressure on schools, the housing crunch. But we've had experts on this show as well. I can think of Sabine Benoit, who joined us, 5 months ago, that said, don't blame Canada's housing crunch on immigrants. And she laid out the argument against that assertion. So 100%. I thought that was really good as well. Tracy, by the way, says, hey guys, keep in mind, she says, I've seen Atlantic Canada find good people and keep them, politicians, no matter the party. She says there was an MLA that crossed the floor twice and survived.
Back and forth?
See, that to me, I don't know. I don't know the one she's referencing, but that to me is ridiculous. I have really, like, I'm not keen on floor crossing. I understand that it's gamesmanship. I understand that, like, I love the mic drop moment in politics where, like, you thought that we didn't have the votes and boom, they're joining us and we have the votes. Never goes, but I think it's, like, honestly, to be real, like, it's super disrespectful to voters. It flies in the face of the democratic process. Like, I just, especially so recent. The election, April 28th. We're talking at the beginning of it. It might as well be October 28th. Like, we're talking like 6 months later.
Sure.
This guy crosses the floor. I mean, I just think, like, if I'm a voter, like, and I know that this audience is the same. Like, I think long and hard. Some decisions are easier than others. Let's be real. I put a great, people stood in line in the most recent municipal elections for 2.5 hours in some circumstances to cast their vote. Like, the vote means a lot.
And when it's
campaigns mean a lot, and volunteers, and people knock doors for you, and people donated money. And I just think crossing the floor is,
it almost
I
seems
hate
premeditated, does it not? When it's that early after an election.
Well, you never know what sort of carrot they dangled. I wonder how many others were offered, right? I mean, like, wouldn't it be great if they poached, great if you're the Liberals.
They only need 2 more, right?
But what if they poached like 10 of them? I mean, do you remember? Do you remember when, I feel awful, I can't remember the other guy. He was a big, tall, brown-haired guy. What was his name? MLA in Alberta, but he was a Wild Rose MLA, along with Kerry Toll. And Kerry Toll and this other big fella, someone will remind me, I shouldn't call him a big fella. But
remember that big fella?
Well, no, he was like 6'5". He was just a big guy. And crossed the floor. I'll Google it as we're talking. But they were like ostracized. Ian Donovan is who I'm thinking of.
Yes.
He came in. He did an interview. No, he wears a cowboy hat. He's a real beauty. Yeah. He did an interview with me shortly after on that terrestrial radio station that nobody listens to anymore. But they were like ostracized for crossing the floor, like bullied, like demeaned, insulted. And then, like, it was something like 9 days later, basically the rest of the Wild Rose Party crossed the floor. Remember Danielle Smith and Jim Prentice came walking down the stairs together at the Alberta legislature, and everybody went, what the hell just happened? And then that sort of, it essentially led to Rachel Notley becoming Premier of Alberta. If you want to draw a short line, that's how it happened. So I don't know. Justin says, I understand the feeling of disliking floor crossings, but as we've seen, parties can drastically change their makeup and their priorities, and people are definitely allowed to change their views. For sure. But, like, what changed between April 28th federal election and now?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Pierre Poilievre's still the leader. Was it Poilievre losing his riding in Ontario and having to come out to Alberta and win a by-election, and maybe D'Entremont, the MP, lost faith in Pierre Poilievre's ability to one day become prime minister? Maybe he believes the writing's on the wall and the Conservatives will not form government under Pierre Poilievre. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's another factor at play. I totally get it. People can absolutely change their views.
But it always feels like, and I'll allude to this as I throw up the picture, they called it the great betrayal, doesn't it?
There it is. Look at that. It kind of reminds me of the Donald Trump going down the escalator photo right before he declared that he would seek the Republican nomination. Tony says, I don't like floor crossers, but I respect somebody who leaves and sits as an independent.
Okay,
and Tony, there you go. I mean, that's I would say, like, maybe the lesser of two evils, right? I mean, if you leave a party on principle and sit as an independent, you actually, like, with a minority government, it
makes sense.
Like, in some circumstances on federal bills, you can hold the balance of power.
But when you go right to the other side, it seems a little, especially after an election this early, it seems a little like, I don't want to say premeditated, but I think, like you, carrots were dangled. They're probably still dangling out there for a few people, right?
Yeah. Justin goes on to say, by the way, I do think floor crossing should trigger some sort of a by-election ultimately. Maybe not in the moment, but maybe within a period of time.
That's fair.
Plain Power says, why are we assuming that he didn't first consult with his constituents before making such a decision?
He called them all?
I don't know, because like 1,000 conservatives in Nova Scotia didn't go to Twitter and light their fucking hair on fire. Like, that would be my number one guess. But says maybe reach out to the MP first for their explanation. Since when do talk show hosts have to do research before they spew their
Never.
opinions? No,
we don't research
Plain
anything.
Power. Get real. Come on. What are we talking about? But in all seriousness, it is an interesting story to follow, and we'll see what the Liberals do to get those other 2 votes. Michael says maybe having Pierre Poilievre and his, quote, useless leadership changed this MP's mind, but he did say that he surveyed his constituents. Okay. We'll see. Shauna says, this is not an issue to me. I vote for the person first with the concern of the party to inform my vote, which is kind of interesting. Les pointing out Dr. Richard Starkey, one of my favorite humans on planet Earth. That's me talking. Les says Dr. Richard Starkey is the last sitting PC MLA in Alberta. He refused to join the UCP.
Just one left.
Well, although I'm trying to figure out, and I should know this answer. If somebody stopped me in the street, this would be great A-B Poly trivia. But Scott Sinclair, who's all fired up right now because his riding is essentially being wiped off the map, the Lesser Slave Lake by the Conservatives, and then Pete Guthrie are both. Now, I know that technically there's, that the UCP wants to basically sue for intellectual property or whatever it is on the name of the PCs. But if they have their wish, the PC party will be resurrected like a phoenix from the ashes and be brought back. And it'll be interesting to see with more discomfort for some UCP MLAs around the direction that this government has been moving in particular on some of the social issues, the notwithstanding clause, most particularly if they invoke it more than once or several times. You could see, floor crossing, so to speak, or you could see next election some incumbents move to run for a different party, for the Progressive Conservatives.
Yeah, I saw what our friend the Scott Sinclair.
Yeah,
I saw him walking downtown yesterday.
Man, he's all fired up right now.
Looking very, very spiffy. But I was like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I don't.
He was in a rush.
We don't like to tell tales outside of school, but I will say this: we did have an exclusive booked with Scott a while ago. You guys know these the boundary reforms or the boundary changes are happening, and the riding that is, it's not funny at all. The riding that's home to the guy that basically said he was going to refuse to vote for the UCP budget as a UCP MLA, and then was basically kicked out of the party, and now sitting as an independent, or was sitting in independent at that time, is now seeing the riding redrawn. So basically the riding's gone. They're furious. And he was booked to come on the show, and at the very last minute, at the 11th hour, he was like, poof. He's like, I'll have to talk to you later. I'm like, ooh. So things are happening. This is the Real Talk Rumor Mill churning. This is the bonus you have for listening this deep into this special episode. The wheels are turning, and we'll see. We'll stay on top of this story, and we'll keep you updated. Tommy pointing out as well, which is fair. I mean, sometimes, the arguments that I'll make, the metaphors I shall present, have as many holes as a beautiful block of Swiss cheese. If you're looking for Swiss cheese, make sure you buy it at Friesen Brothers, proudly Alberta grown and Alberta owned. But Tommy says crossing the floor from conservative to conservative is totally different. It is an interesting point you make, Tommy, and you would say crossing the floor from the Wild Rose to the PCs may be different than crossing the floors from the federal Conservatives to the federal Liberals. However, not when the PCs are the governing party. The Wild Rose is the opposition party. The opposition party has aims at forming government and believes that the governing party is vulnerable, right? With everything around the entitlement and the PCs and the look in the mirror and the math is hard, and the Conservatives were hobbling. The PCs were in trouble, and the Wild Rose propped them up to allow to continue to govern until they didn't. And so I would say, I don't know if it did more harm than good, but I'll take your point. That's a great question for a debate over beers. We will say this as we get to work on producing our next episode, of course, that we want to hear from you, Real Talkers, and this is something that's important to us, that we have your perspectives represented on the show. You can always send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. I do want to note, we had so many comments from you, and we'll pick this conversation up in future episodes about workforce participation and about what you did in your own post-secondary journey or not, where you found work or not. And a lot of those comments in our live chat had to do with Alberta's energy industry. We heard just a short time ago a voice, James Fan, from the CCS Knowledge Center, the International CCS Knowledge Center. We were talking about carbon capture and storage. If you're intrigued to learn more about that, you can check out our episodes this week. And you can also check out pathwaysalliance.ca. Pathways Alliance is the 6th biggest oil sands companies in the country working together to meet global demand on energy supply and also on environmental standards. You can find out more details again, pathwaysalliance.ca, on how the project is working together to provide the energy that the world needs. No doubt about that, while advancing environmental innovation and projects. You know, Canada's oil sands produce so much more than just oil. And on the website, you can learn how Pathways Alliance and energy projects in our home province of Alberta are supporting jobs and communities across Canada. That's what we're talking about this week, as in the context of the federal budget, economic activity, labor force participation. This is jobs and the economy, and that's what Pathways Alliance is all about. Again, pathwaysalliance.ca. For those of you getting excited about what your Edmonton Oilers or your Calgary Flames are doing, I want to remind you that Albertans are winning every single day on Play Alberta. You know, one of the best things about Play Alberta is that all of the funds stay right here in our home province of Alberta, and that is a big deal for charities and nonprofits. So the next time you're looking to place a wager on your favorite team, make sure you do it at playalberta.ca or via the Play Alberta app. Don't forget, you have to be 18 or older to participate, and if you do decide to gamble, please use your game sense. As we wrap this episode today, again, we want to thank those of you that have taken the time to, if you're listening to us on the podcast, to rate and review the podcast. We saw a really beautiful jump in those ratings and those reviews over the past month or so. That means a lot to us as we look to grow the reach of this show and, of course, further grow this audience in the quest to continue to have conversations that challenge us, that enlighten us, and that grow our understanding of the world around us. We appreciate you, Real Talkers, and we'll see you right back here again in 22 hours.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton, member emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.